Alright, so I've got 2 brioche swatches here. This seam is what I use in the Raquette Pullover. So I have done 2 swatches that include that 1x1 rib edge at the bottoms. So at the end of the 1x1 ribbing, you should have left 1 strand attached to a corner of each panel. So I'm going to use that thread for my seam. Thread my needle. And if the thread is coming out of this left side swatch, then I'm going to start by stitching into my right. If it's coming out of this swatch, then I'll start by stitching into my left. Now the way that I've set this up is your first row on either side, or first column rather, would be a main color column, or a matte column in the ribbing. And I'm actually going to do my seam in the center of the purl column. So I'm going to kind of open things up here, and I want to be essentially mattress stitching, but into the purl bump on those purl rows. So I'm going to go into that first bump, and then I'm going to do the same on the first purl bump of that purl column on my other side. So in the 1x1 ribbing, these purl bumps are going to be U-shaped. So I'm going to go into this first little U. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the right panel again. I'm going to go through this U, back to the left panel, going up through the next U. And you're just going to continue going up these columns. And every handful of stitches, I'm just going to snug things up. And as you pull that through, it'll get a little tidier. And the length of your ribbing should be the same on both sides. So you should go under, one of those purl bumps in the purl column of either side. And that's how my seam is looking so far. I just like that my knit column kind of stays uninterrupted, and that hides the seam even more when the ribbing kind of pulls together. So now going into the brioche. So looking into every purl column, you can see there's the bridge of the main color. And then behind that, if I were to kind of loop my needle all the way in there, you can see, focus, that there is actually a leg of the contrast color as well. So you're essentially going to be doing the same thing with this like pseudo mattress stitch, but in the purl column, you are going to grab, sorry, my first stitch is super duper funky, but you want to get into both the main color kind of leg that's created from the slip-on yarn over and the actual leg of the stitch. This is my lowermost stitch. You can see that kind of hole. This is the hole in the stitch above it. So I'm going to go down into that stitch, go underneath both the main color and the contrast color, and then come back up and out. And you're just going to keep doing that on both sides. And that first stitch is kind of the most fiddly, and then it becomes a bit more obvious. So again, making sure you're going under both the main color and the contrast color, little cross legs, And you essentially enter where you came out most recently on that side. So here's the stitch that I just came out of, and then I'm going to go under both of the legs that are right above that. And then over on this side, this is the stitch that I just came out of. Go under both the main color and the contrast color legs. And just remember to keep snugging things up. The last thing that I would recommend doing is making sure that you give this tail like a bit of a pull. I like to just make sure that there's not any loops sticking out or whatever that I miss. So I'll kind of scrunch it down along there and then pull it to just even out the tension along this yarn. That way I still have stretch lengthwise on the sides of my garment.